Hey everybody, and welcome to the Chit Chat. Today we're going to do a Kickstarter update. And before I go into it, I want to take a brief minute and explain what the Kickstarter update process means to me and what it's going to be going forward. So right now there are over 300 tabletop games on Kickstarter, and nobody has the time to go through all of them, much less would you want to. For the most part, Kickstarter has a lot of things that I personally am not a fan of or that I feel very at risk backing. I appreciate new designers and I want to support them, but I also want to make sure that my money goes to a reputable company that will deliver. And so basically what we're doing here is I'm going through a large amount of those Kickstarter projects. I am watching their videos, reading all of their stuff, researching their companies and their games and their mechanics. And in many cases, I'm going to Tabletop Simulator or something of that nature, and I'm actually testing their games. And so what I intend to do here is to bring you anywhere in between 3 to 5 games during each video that I think are at least worth looking at on Kickstarter. That doesn't always mean that they'll be for you. It doesn't always mean that I think that it's a game everyone should own. But I think it's something that if it sounds intriguing to you, or if the mechanics sound fun after my description, you should look into it further and maybe consider backing it. So the first game that I'm going to talk about this week is going to be Best Treehouse Ever, Forest of Fun. So this is a 2 to 4 player game that can actually accommodate up to 8 players if you combine it with the prior game, Best Treehouse Ever. So this is a sequel, but it's also a standalone sequel. So if you don't own the other game or you don't want to own the other game, you don't need to. However, Best Treehouse Ever by Scott Elms and produced by Green Couch Games is a game that I think was a little bit underappreciated. And I personally think it was underappreciated due to the art. It is somewhat childish in its art, but it's also unique. It has a nice caricature type style to it. And caricature may be the wrong word, but it has a nice classic art style to it that I really enjoy. So this game's going to play in 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll describe it for you a little bit. What do you do in this game? You build the best treehouse ever. I know, that is not the best description. What you're going to do is you're going to actually have a pool of cards. Across 3 rounds, you're going to be drafting those cards into your hand and then playing them into your treehouse. Now, there is actually a lot to look into and tactically to do here. So in your treehouse, you can't unbalance it. So I cannot have a lot of heavy rooms on one side of my tree, or I will actually physically uproot the tree from the ground and send it toppling over, and I will ruin my own treehouse. I also have some really high value rooms, but they have branches and everything above them, so nothing can go on top of them. And there's a color or a set collection aspect to it as well. So the more of a certain type I have in, they might score a different way. Now, Forest of Fun actually adds a few things to the gameplay that was established in the initial game, Best Treehouse Ever. One, it allows you to play the 8 players if you combine the 2. The box has a setup for you to put both games in it. So if you own the prior game, you won't have to keep storage solutions for both of them, and it is not double the size of the original box. But in addition to the gameplay aspects it adds are animals. So now you can coexist with animals in the tree. You can build below the tree as well, so you can expand your own root system, making it sturdier and giving yourself underground hiding holes. You can also start with a location for your treehouse. So maybe I build mine in the forest, and that's going to change how, or the goals that I have, giving you a little bit more direction to your game, a little bit more of an idea of what kind of goals you're going to have throughout the process. So again, features here, standalone game that can be combined with the original. It includes 60 brand new rooms. So if you've played the old game, there is no overlap. There are animal cards that add new scoring methods and opportunities, and then there are location and forest cards that add a variety of new goals to the individual tree houses. Currently, this Kickstarter is actually priced at $23 to $53 depending on what level you pledge. The $23 is going to be the base level that gets you the new game. The $53 will get you the new game, the old game, and a vinyl playmat, which I actually think if you're going to get this game, that the playmat is actually very excellent. Gives you a good layout of the cards. It just looks nice on the table. I do recommend it. There's 15 days left on the project as of the date of this video, and fulfillment's going to be expected in June of 2018. So that is Best Treehouse Ever, Forest of Fun. The next game we're going to talk about today is going to be Too Many Bones, Undertow. So this game is a 1 to 2 player game. It technically can accommodate up to 4 players, but you need additional gear locks, which are characters in this game. It only comes with 2 characters. There are additional characters that you can add on, but I personally feel like it was intended to be played at 1 to 2 players. Even though you can add them on, I don't really suggest it. It does add a lot of time. So the designers here are Adam and Josh Carlson, and it's published by Chip Theory Games with a playtime of around 60 to 180 minutes. Thematically, this is also a second game in a series, but it is a standalone game. So if you did not back or purchase the initial Too Many Bones game, this is a game that might allow you to get into it and get into it a little cheaper. So I'll go ahead and cover the game itself. It is a standalone sequel to the dice building RPG Too Many Bones, which I did initially avoid completely for 2 reasons. RPG and dice are not words I typically look for when I look for games. I'm more of a Euro gamer. I like those crunchy, tactical, strategic mechanisms in games. So I completely passed on it. And I also just, I don't solo game. Typically, if I want to play a solo game, I'm going to be playing a video game or something of that nature instead. That being said, after seeing the game in person, I was somewhat blown away by the quality of these components. It is something that is so far overproduced. The cards are PVC quality, so everything's waterproof. The gear lock or the character cards are dual layered. You can put your dice down inside of them. There's nothing that knocks around. It comes with hundreds of dice. There is a lot in this box. All of the tokens are poker chip or clay chip type pieces. So everything is of the highest quality when you look at this game, both the old and the new version. Now, from my own friends' experiences and my own experiences now that somebody has talked me into playing it and those components really attract me, I can recommend the game with a few comments. So the story in the game, in my opinion, is minimal. I really thought this would be the primary mechanism of the game, but I personally found myself mostly ignoring the story and really getting into the tactics and the decision-making of really growing my character as I went through. The dice rolls are mitigated well, but it is still a factor, especially early on in a game. You can take a few really early bad rolls that will make it very difficult for you to win. And it only plays 1 or 2 people outside of the box, and it is expensive to add other characters, meaning you either have to now buy Too Many Bones, the original game, or spend another $20, $30 on a new character in the Kickstarter itself, of which is already somewhat expensive due to the component quality. The game plays out over a series of encounters, so you're going to play fights, mini games, or puzzles, or sometimes just story interactions, but you're going to basically draw an encounter, resolve it, and then earn some form of upgrade dice that you can improve your character and how you move through the game. This is going to happen repeatedly throughout the process, and it is the primary mechanism for moving forward. In addition, there come several difficulties. I think there are actually 2 difficulties below the normal mode of the game, and I did lose the first time I played the easiest difficulty. I was eventually able to build into the ability to win consistently, and so I can somewhat speak for the ability for the dice rolls to be mitigated. So I'm going to list some features here. Features on this game are going to be very unique characters with a surprising amount of depth and customization options. I really did not expect that. The characters feel very, very different in their skills, in the way they can be built, and the way the dice can be applied to them. And I just really did not expect that. In addition, like I said earlier, there's extremely high quality components. That it's also a cheaper entry point to the Too Many Bones series, with the earliest or the lowest entry point being at $68. For the components, $68 is very reasonable for this game. And it also can utilize other characters, which again they call gear locks, from other Too Many Bones games. So if you have the other games, you can play those characters in this game if you really enjoy it. But it is a completely new story. So the prices on this one, they start at $68 for the very basic level. They go all the way up to $290. At $290, you get the prior game and the new game and a bunch of extra features, including very upgraded player mats and art books, etc. I personally don't think you need to go in that much. There is a lot of content in each of these games, and so the $68 backing level is perfectly reasonable. In addition, they're doing something very unique here. They're doing a strategic backer option. It is $600, but you're guaranteed to receive every future game that they produce in this series. Now, they've already produced 2. They're sending strategic backers out from the first level, and so I find that to be interesting. It's not something I'm personally doing, but I do find that to be an interesting concept, and it is an additional reward and incentive for those people who love their games and want to support them going forward in perpetuity. There are 15 days left on this project at the time of this video, and fulfillment is also expected in June 2018. So that is Too Many Bones Undertow. The next game we want to talk about here is Legends of Sleepy Hollow. And it's simply a 1 to 4 player cooperative game by designer Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle, with a publisher of Dice Hate Me Games. And it's going to play in around 60 minutes, but it is a fully cooperative game. Now, this is a tactical and card-driven story adventure game that's actually set days after the disappearance of Ichabod Crane. So all of us, as we grew up, we heard the story of Sleepy Hollow, we heard the story of the Headless Horseman, but this really aims at expanding on that story and the aftermath of the story and what happened. Now, I think that's a really interesting concept, and since at the time of this video, we're very close to Halloween, it kind of spoke to me. You're going to choose and play one of 4 unique characters in this game. So there's an Undertaker that's kind of a tank, there is a Fletcher that is a ranged DPSer, there's a few somewhat fantasy tropes in there as far as the roles, healer, DPS, etc. But they do play differently. In addition, this is going to be played over 8 chapters. So basically, there are 8 fairly unique games in the way the mechanisms play out and in the strategies and tactics you're going to need to do to win. And it comes with 8 different boards that you're going to play these scenarios out over. It also comes with a spiral-bound book in which you're going to actually play it out. It's also going to have some legacy elements. As you move through the game, you're going to open some packages that change those mechanics for the new boards that give you new pieces and things of that nature. Now, even though this is billed as kind of a legacy play style, one of the things that they wanted to make sure was doable is replayability on each map. So yes, there are no twists and turns in the story once you've played it, but the setup and the way it plays out is variable enough that it is fun and challenging moving forward. In addition, they added both heroic and mythical or hell or whatever type modes you want to call it, basically 2 additional difficulties that both change the mechanics and again make it much harder. So you do get some replayability there. It is a high quality miniature game, or appears to be. Now, I would say they look similar to miniatures that you're going to see in Cool Mini or Not, maybe a little bit less detail than that, but they do look good. I've never physically held one in my hand, so I can't really speak to the quality there, but in the initial renderings and pictures, they look solid. I want to say that one of the main reasons I'm actually attracted to this game, and will end up backing it myself, is one of the first games that I ended up playing with my wife and family was Mice and Mystics. This really, really really reminds me of Mice and Mystics. It reminds me of a more tactical and strategic version of Mice and Mystics. A lot of Mice and Mystics was done by dice, and the replayability in that game, in my opinion, was poor. Whereas here, I feel like there's a bit more replayability. I feel like there is a bit less luck and a bit more tactics. Now, I've not played through the whole thing, and so I cannot speak to the story or any spoilers here, but I do think that it's something I want to give a shot because I like that story aspect, and I like the fact that there's a little bit more tactics involved. So the features of this game: it's fully cooperative, it's story-driven with 8 chapters that are intended to feel almost as completely different games, and it is replayable, including 2 additional difficulty modes after the story that add mechanics and elements of variability. It's Kickstarter priced at $69, up to $109 if you fully back it. However, the higher amount in this game really gives you very little. It gives you non-gameplay additions such as an art book, etc. There are 15 days remaining on this project, and it will be fulfilled in December of 2018. So this one's a little bit farther off. So those are the 3 main games I want to talk about today. I also want to give you a few honorable mentions. And when I say honorable mentions here, these are games that intrigued me either because of theme or prior publishers, but I wasn't able to find out enough information. I definitely wasn't able to play them. And so they both gave me some concerns on whether I thought they would be a good quality. The first one's going to be Root. This is a game that really reminded me of the old Redwall books that I enjoyed as a child, or even Watership Down. Watership Down was not so much my thing, but I know it is something that came through a lot of our childhoods, and it's a fairly iconic thing. So in this game, I actually had some concerns about the dice. It does appear that combat is resolved in a dice-like manner. That may not be a problem to other people, but it has an asymmetrical feel, so there are 4 factions that are all going to play out differently with different goals. And once you reach a certain score, the game is over. Now, it's made by the people who made Vast the Crystal Caverns, and it's intended to be a more accessible and quicker version of that game. I love the art. I found it to be fascinating. It really spoke to me, and I almost want to be in on it for the art alone. That being said, I did have too many concerns about the dice, and so I'm not fully featuring it here. I also want to mention Speakeasy as an honorable mention. It's from the makers of Sagrada, and I really enjoyed Sagrada as a nice casual game. It feels a lot like Role Player, but it has a less taboo theme. So maybe, you're playing with family and they don't necessarily want to do Role Player where you're building out an RPG type character, but they like the idea of the stained glass windows. It's a pretty game, or they're familiar with Sudoku, and you can kind of tell them, it's reminiscent of that. So since it's from the same makers as Sagrada, I was attracted to it a bit. Now, I will say that it is a dice worker placement game, and I love Marco Polo. It's one of my favorite games. But I was a little bit worried again about how well they mitigated the dice rolls in this game, and I absolutely hated the art. Another good thing I can say about it, though, is it is about a pretty unused theme. You're basically running an old speakeasy in the times of Prohibition, and I do find that to be interesting. I was just concerned that the art quality and the gameplay quality were not there. I haven't played it, so I can't explicitly speak to that, but those were my concerns in reviewing the Kickstarter itself. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching this video today. If you liked it, if it helped you, please leave a like or subscribe to the video channel, and I will see you next time. Have a great day and enjoy games.